97% of older men miss it. Not because they're foolish, not because they're weak, and certainly not because they're unattractive. They miss it because no one ever told them where to look. No one ever taught them that interest doesn't always come dressed in red lips and flirtatious touches. Sometimes it comes in the form of a simple question. Innocent, harmless, but hiding intent in plain sight. It's not their fault. For years, they were told to be direct, to chase, to pursue. And in those younger days, maybe that worked. Maybe signals were louder, more obvious, less calculated. But as time passes, the game changes. Women get smarter, their methods get subtler. The questions they ask, they aren't just conversation starters, they're tests, probes, invitations. Yet 97% of older men don't realize this. They don't recognize the moment they're being approached, not because it's hard to see, but because it looks too ordinary, too casual, too polite. So they smile, they answer, and they move on, never knowing they just walked away from someone who was interested. That's the tragedy. It's not that attraction fades with age. It's that the signals evolve. They shift from the surface to the subtext, from loud to layered, and those who fail to adjust get left behind. Women no longer say, "I like you." They ask, "Are you seeing anyone?" They don't say, "I want to get to know you." They ask, "What do you usually do on weekends?" These aren't just harmless questions, they are clues, carefully placed, deliberately offered, but only to men who know how to read them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men never learn this language. They grow up hearing that if a woman likes you, she'll smile, laugh at your jokes, or lean in when you talk. And yes, sometimes she does. But more often than not, she says something that sounds completely neutral, and watches to see if you pick up on the message hidden inside. She leaves a breadcrumb, not because she's playing games, but because she wants a man who notices. And this is where most men fail. They wait for something obvious. A compliment, a touch, a look that lingers too long. But women rarely move that directly, especially around older men. Not because they're not interested, but because they are. And interest makes them vulnerable. So instead of risking outright rejection, they send signals disguised as casual questions. And when those signals get missed, they retreat. Quietly, gracefully, without a scene, leaving the man to wonder why nothing ever seems to happen. It's not about looks, it's not about money, it's about awareness. The kind of awareness that sees beyond words. That recognizes when a woman isn't just asking what you do, she's asking if your life has space for someone like her. She isn't just asking if you're married, she's asking if she should continue investing energy into this moment. These questions aren't thrown randomly into the air. They're carefully timed. And if you don't respond in kind, the moment vanishes. Most men never even know it was there. Imagine the difference between a man who hears a question and one who feels it. One who hears "What kind of music do you like?" and treats it like idle chatter, versus one who senses the shift, the eye contact, the body language, the tone, and realizes this is not just a question, this is a door quietly opening to something deeper. But here's the most painful part. The man who misses that signal doesn't just miss her. He reinforces her belief that men don't get it, or that men don't see her. And so she stops asking, stops offering, stops trying, and the world continues on, full of men feeling invisible and women feeling rejected, all because one simple question went misunderstood. This doesn't have to be you. There is a different path, one of presence, perception, and clarity. But it starts by dropping the assumption that women only express interest the way movies taught us they would. It starts by realizing that attraction isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. And if you've been deaf to that whisper, you've been missing out, not just on connection, but on possibility. And once you begin to hear it, truly hear it, the world doesn't just look different, you do. What most never realize is that attraction has its own language, and it isn't spoken out loud. It's hinted at. It's woven into questions that seem casual, delivered with timing that feels coincidental, but nothing is by accident. Women don't waste words when they're interested. They don't just talk to fill silence. Every question, every glance, every moment she chooses to stay in the conversation, it's all intentional. The question might sound harmless. Maybe she asks, "Are you from around here?" or "What brings you here tonight?" It's easy to think she's just being polite, making conversation, passing time. But that assumption blinds men to the deeper reality. Women don't initiate contact without a reason. They don't make the effort unless they see something in you, something they want to know more about, something that caught their interest. That question? It's not just curiosity, it's a test, a signal, a bridge. This is the language so few men are ever taught. Not because it's a secret, but because most aren't paying attention. They've grown used to waiting for bold, unmistakable signs, the kind that rarely come. They wait for her to say, "I like you," but ignore the moments where she gives him a chance to reveal who he is. She doesn't need to say the words. She asks the questions because she's hoping you'll pick up the thread and carry it forward. The hidden language isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's patient, subtle, but incredibly deliberate. When a woman asks you about your weekend, your hobbies, your relationship status, she isn't gathering facts. She's feeling your energy. She's reading how you respond, how you hold yourself, how engaged you are. The words are just a vessel. What she's really watching is your presence. And here's where so many men go wrong. They respond to the words but ignore the tone. They hear the question but miss the intent. They answer like it's an interview, short, safe, surface level. And just like that, the moment is gone. She retreats, feeling unseen. Not because he said the wrong thing, but because he said it without awareness, without connection, without that spark that makes a woman want to go deeper. This language isn't about game playing. It's not manipulation. It's instinct. A woman who is even slightly interested will always test the waters first. She'll never jump in without checking the temperature. That's her nature, to protect, to observe, to feel. And when she asks that harmless question, she's not looking for information. She's looking for resonance. Here's the irony. Many men complain that women don't make the first move, but they do, all the time. They just don't do it the way men expect. They don't walk up and say, "I think you're attractive, let's go out." That's not how they're wired. Instead, they approach sideways, with curiosity, playfulness, or humor. They use questions as open doors, and if a man doesn't walk through it, she won't try again. The hidden language isn't about being clever. It's about being tuned in. It's about recognizing that when she asks, "What do you usually do for fun?" she might be wondering if your world has room for her. When she asks, "Are you single?" she's not just asking if you're available, she's asking if you're emotionally open, confident enough to own your space, and self-aware enough to catch the message behind the words. That's why this isn't about tricks or techniques. It's about perception, presence, the ability to notice what most miss. It's about understanding that interest isn't always shown directly. It's expressed in questions that sound innocent but are full of intent. And the man who can read that language, he instantly stands apart. Because he listens differently. He hears not just what she says, but what she means. He doesn't just answer the question, he connects with the woman asking it. That's rare. That's powerful. That's attractive. The truth is, women are always communicating, but they aren't shouting, they're signaling. And the man who learns to decode that, the one who hears the quiet message under the casual question, becomes the kind of man women don't forget. Not because he's flashy, but because he gets it. Attraction doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes it slips in quietly through a side window, wearing a mask of curiosity. A woman won't always show her hand directly, not because she's unsure, but because she knows exactly what she's doing. She asks questions, seemingly casual ones, but with layers beneath. And unless a man has trained himself to listen beneath the surface, he'll answer the question and miss the meaning entirely. She might say, "How tall are you?" It sounds superficial, random. But it's not. That question has nothing to do with height. It has everything to do with how you respond. Do you get defensive? Do you feel insecure? Or do you answer with ease, with humor, with grounded confidence? She doesn't want inches. She wants energy. That's the real test. The words are just the bait. Your reaction is the catch. Then comes another classic. "Are you single?" A man hears that and thinks it's small talk, just something people ask. But here's the truth. No woman asks that unless she's already imagined the possibility of being in your life. She doesn't throw that question into the void. She's fishing, lightly, to see how open the door is. And if you don't catch the weight behind it, if you treat it like a survey question instead of the subtle invitation it is, the moment closes. Quietly, instantly. Even more subtle are the questions like, what do you do for fun? Or what kind of music do you listen to? They sound harmless, routine, but they're not. These are feelers, soft touches to gauge connection. She's not looking for compatibility on a checklist. She's looking for a moment, a spark, a sign that you're someone who lives fully, someone interesting, someone whose life has rhythm and space. If your answer is dull, distracted, or overly rehearsed, it says far more than you think, and not in your favor. Here's what most miss. When a woman asks these questions, she's not just passing time, she's scanning. She's feeling out the vibe, sensing whether there's chemistry, curiosity, confidence, and she's doing it all without ever needing to say, I like you? She doesn't need to, because if you're paying attention, you'll know. That's what makes this kind of attraction so easy to overlook. It's hidden inside the mundane. The questions aren't dramatic. There's no slow motion music, no lightning bolt moment. Just a simple sentence with a loaded undertone. And if you're not grounded, if you're not fully present, you'll treat it like background noise instead of the moment it really is. It's important to understand. Women aren't trying to be mysterious. They're trying to be safe. A direct approach makes them vulnerable. It gives power away too fast. So instead, they move like artists, painting with light strokes, watching to see what picture you help create. A question is their way of nudging open a door. Not all the way, just enough. And if you don't step through, they close it quietly, without resentment, without drama, just gone. That's the difference between men who get chosen and men who get ignored. The ones who get chosen aren't louder, richer, or more attractive. They're more aware. They catch the signals others miss. They don't wait for overt green lights. They move when the flicker of possibility appears. And they do it with grace, not aggression. There's power in understanding this. Power in recognizing that curiosity is often just desire in disguise. That when she asks you something random, she's really asking, are you paying attention? Are you awake? Are you someone who sees beyond the surface? Because if you are, she'll keep going. She'll ask more. She'll lean in. Not always physically, but energetically. She'll invest more into the moment, but only if she feels seen, only if her subtle move is matched by your presence. Most men wait for permission. The wise ones understand that it's already been given, just not in the language they were taught. And once you learn to hear the meaning behind the question, every interaction becomes clearer, simpler, more electric. Because she's not just curious, she's interested. She just wants to know if you can tell the difference. Awareness is the rarest trait in the modern man. Not looks, not charm, not even confidence. Awareness, the ability to sense what others overlook, to feel the unsaid, to recognize the subtle moment when connection is being offered without a single word declaring it, that is the difference maker. Because most don't see what's in front of them. They're not blind by sight, but by perception. A woman doesn't always flirt with her body. She flirts with her attention. She flirts with her energy. When she stays a little longer in the conversation, when her question lingers just a second too long, when her tone shifts from general to personal, that's not coincidence, that's not politeness. That's a spark, offered gently, cautiously, and with quiet hope that the man she's talking to knows the difference. But so often he doesn't, because he isn't there. He's in his head thinking about what to say next. He's focused on saying the right thing, looking the right way, not messing up, all while missing the one thing she's actually hoping for, presence. Women can feel the second a man drifts out of the moment. They can sense when he's trying to impress rather than connect, and when they do, the energy dies, not with a bang, but with a subtle withdrawal, a smile that fades, a gaze that wanders, a moment that closes. Awareness keeps that from happening. It allows a man to read between the lines, to feel the tone behind the question, to recognize the warmth in the way she says, "That's interesting," or the invitation hidden in, "You seem different." Those aren't filler phrases. Those are keys. Keys to deeper conversations, to more meaningful interaction, to attraction that builds without needing to be spelled out. But awareness isn't just about women. It starts within. A man who is aware of himself, his posture, his words, his breath, his energy, creates a gravity that others feel. He doesn't chase attention. He draws it. because people trust those who are fully present. And women, especially, are drawn to men who make them feel seen, not studied, heard, not handled, safe, not seduced. Think about this. How many opportunities have been lost because a man answered a question with logic instead of instinct? Because he treated her interest like politeness instead of potential? Because he was so focused on being appropriate, he became invisible? It happens more than anyone wants to admit, and it's not because women are playing games. It's because men are living blind. They've trained themselves to ignore their own instincts, to doubt their own intuition, to look for big signs while missing the subtle ones right in front of them. And in doing so, they fail to respond to the energy that actually matters. Awareness changes that. It sharpens perception. It tunes the senses. It allows a man to feel the moment when the energy shifts, when the conversation deepens, when her curiosity is no longer general, it's personal. That's when he stops being just another guy and becomes the one who gets it. And getting it doesn't mean being slick. It doesn't mean knowing the perfect comeback or dropping a flawless line. It means being awake, emotionally attuned, present enough to say less but mean more. The man who listens with intention, who pauses before responding, who notices the change in her tone, the direction of her gaze, the rhythm of her speech, he's the one she remembers. Because in a world full of distraction, awareness is magnetic. In a sea of men trying to impress, the one who notices, truly notices, stands apart. He sees the moment others miss. And because of that, he moves with more certainty, more calm, more presence. He doesn't force attraction. He feels it building. The truth is simple. Women are constantly sending out signals, but only to those who are tuned to receive them. Most men walk through life on autopilot, but the man who slows down, who pays attention, who senses the difference between a polite question and a meaningful one, he unlocks a different kind of connection. This kind of man doesn't need to chase. He gets chosen, not by everyone, but by the ones who matter. Awareness is the rarest trait in the modern man, not looks, not charm, not even confidence. Awareness, the ability to sense what others overlook, to feel the unsaid, to recognize the subtle moment when connection is being offered without a single word declaring it, that is the difference maker. Because most don't see what's in front of them. They're not blind by sight, but by perception. A woman doesn't always flirt with her body. She flirts with her attention. She flirts with her energy. When she stays a little longer in the conversation, when her question lingers just a second too long, when her tone shifts from general to personal, that's not coincidence, that's not politeness. That's a spark, offered gently, cautiously, and with quiet hope that the man she's talking to knows the difference. But so often, he doesn't, because he isn't there. He's in his head, thinking about what to say next. He's focused on saying the right thing, looking the right way, not messing up, all while missing the one thing she's actually hoping for, presence. Women can feel the second a man drifts out of the moment. They can sense when he's trying to impress rather than connect. And when they do, the energy dies, not with a bang, but with a subtle withdrawal, a smile that fades, a gaze that wanders, a moment that closes. Awareness keeps that from happening. It allows a man to read between the lines, to feel the tone behind the question, to recognize the warmth in the way she says, "That's interesting," or the invitation hidden in, "You seem different." Those aren't filler phrases. Those are keys. Keys to deeper conversations, to more meaningful interaction, to attraction that builds without needing to be spelled out. But awareness isn't just about women. It starts within. A man who is aware of himself, his posture, his words, his breath, his energy, creates a gravity that others feel. He doesn't chase attention. He draws it. Because people trust those who are fully present. And women especially are drawn to men who make them feel seen, not studied, heard, not handled, safe, not seduced. Think about this. How many opportunities have been lost because a man answered a question with logic instead of instinct? Because he treated her interest like politeness instead of potential? Because he was so focused on being appropriate, he became invisible? It happens more than anyone wants to admit. And it's not because women are playing games. It's because men are living blind. They've trained themselves to ignore their own instincts, to doubt their own intuition, to look for big signs while missing the subtle ones right in front of them. And in doing so, they fail to respond to the energy that actually matters. Awareness changes that. It sharpens perception. It tunes the senses. It allows a man to feel the moment when the energy shifts, when the conversation deepens, when her curiosity is no longer general. It's personal. That's when he stops being just another guy and becomes the one who gets it. And getting it doesn't mean being slick. It doesn't mean knowing the perfect comeback or dropping a flawless line. It means being awake, emotionally attuned, present enough to say less but mean more. The man who listens with intention, who pauses before responding, who notices the change in her tone, the direction of her gaze, the rhythm of her speech, he's the one she remembers. Because in a world full of distraction, awareness is magnetic. In a sea of men trying to impress, the one who notices, truly notices, stands apart. He sees the moment others miss. And because of that, he moves with more certainty, more calm, more presence. He doesn't force attraction, he feels it building. The truth is simple. Women are constantly sending out signals, but only to those who are tuned to receive them. Most men walk through life on autopilot, but the man who slows down, who pays attention, who senses the difference between a polite question and a meaningful one, he unlocks a different kind of connection. This kind of man doesn't need to chase. He gets chosen, not by everyone, but by the ones who matter. There's one question that holds more weight than any pickup line, any compliment, any flirtatious glance. It's short, simple, disguised as small talk, and yet it reveals more intent than most men are prepared to recognize. Do you have a girlfriend? On the surface, it sounds casual, as if she's simply gathering information, as if she's making conversation, asking out of curiosity. But it's not curiosity, it's calculation. That question isn't about facts, it's about feelers. It's not what she's asking, it's why she's asking it. She already has a reason. She already noticed something in you. Your energy, your presence, your tone, something that made her pause. She doesn't ask this question at random. She asks it because she's scanning for potential. Because she's wondering if it's worth opening herself up just a little bit more, if the path ahead might be clear, if you're emotionally available, not just single on paper, but open in presence, attitude, and response. But most men don't hear the real question. They treat it like a yes or no moment. Yeah, I'm single. No, I'm not seeing anyone. Short, closed, flat. And just like that, the opening disappears, because she wasn't asking for a status update. She was looking for connection, for context, for the way you carry the answer, not the answer itself. When a woman asks if you have a girlfriend, what she's really saying is there space for me in your life? She's saying, I'm interested, but I'm not going to put myself out there if I don't feel safe. She's giving you a chance to notice, a chance to see her interest. And most men respond like they're filling out a form at the DMV. This is where awareness becomes everything. Because the real message isn't in the words, it's in the moment. The way her eyes hold yours a bit longer, the slight shift in her voice when she asks. The fact that she even asked at all. That one sentence is a bold move disguised as politeness, and if a man doesn't recognize the difference, he turns away from possibility without even knowing it was there. A woman who asks that question is giving a signal, soft, subtle, but intentional. She's saying, I'm curious about you. She's wondering if you're emotionally open, confident in yourself, and aware enough to recognize what she's offering without needing her to spell it out. And here's the irony. The men who are most likely to miss this moment are the ones most ready for connection. They've done the work, they've become stable, thoughtful, grounded, but they've also become cautious, careful. They've learned not to assume, not to overstep, and in that caution, they downplay the one question that matters most. But the wise man responds differently. He doesn't just answer, he opens. He lets the moment breathe. He feels the weight of her question and matches it with presence. He might smile, lean into the moment, say something simple like, nope, not currently. Why do you ask? Not in a pushy way, but in a playful one. Light, curious, inviting. That kind of response signals awareness. It shows that he's not asleep at the wheel, that he sees her, not just as someone asking a question, but as someone who might be reaching for something more. And that changes everything. Because a woman who feels seen, not just looked at but seen, drops her guard. She steps into the moment more fully. She invests emotionally. And what started as a casual question becomes the first thread in something real. Most men never get there. They miss the pivot point. They hear the question and stay on the surface. And so the woman quietly decides, he doesn't feel it. He's not aware. He's not available. She won't show disappointment. She won't say what she hoped for. She'll just pull back, gracefully, without explanation. But the man who catches it, the one who understands the real question being asked, opens a new world of interaction. He stops playing checkers in a chess game. He starts moving with awareness, confidence, clarity. He doesn't push, he recognizes. And in doing so, he steps into a rare category of men, the ones who notice what others miss. Because in the end, do you have a girlfriend? Isn't just a question. It's an opportunity, and how you respond says everything. The words you say are only part of the equation. The real message, the one that leaves an impression, comes from your energy, your tone, your body language, your presence. It's not about what you answer, it's about how you answer. A woman doesn't just listen to your words, she listens to the man behind them. She feels your certainty, she senses your confidence. She watches how you sit in your skin when she asks a question that tests your availability or interest. She's reading the space between your sentences. That's where your real communication lives. When she asks, "Do you have a girlfriend?" and you say no with your eyes down and your shoulders tight, that answer tells her everything she needs to know, but not in the way you think. You're telling her you're technically single but energetically closed, disconnected, defensive, uncertain. On the other hand, you could give the exact same answer, no, with steady eye contact, a relaxed smile, and a playful pause that says, "I know why you're asking." Now she's not just hearing that you're single. She's feeling that you're confident, grounded, and present. She's feeling the open door. That subtle cue, that unspoken invitation is what draws her in. This is what most men never learn. Your energy speaks first. Always. Before a word leaves your mouth, she already feels whether you're safe to open up to, whether you're grounded in yourself or hiding behind polite distance, whether you're capable of receiving interest or shutting it down out of habit. Energy is the language beneath language, and women are fluent in it, not because they've studied it, but because they've lived in it. They've had to learn to read danger in a man's tone, to detect insecurity behind bravado, to sense manipulation behind charm. So when a woman engages you with a question that has emotional weight, she's not just waiting for your answer, she's testing the energy it rides on. The man who responds with calm, curiosity, and playfulness creates safety. He creates intrigue. He gives her a signal that says, "I'm comfortable here. I know who I am, and I'm not afraid of connection." That's rare. That's powerful. That's what she remembers. But the man who reacts with stiffness, awkwardness, or over-explaining, even if his words are correct, unknowingly shuts down the moment. Not because he did something wrong, but because his energy said, "I'm not ready, I don't notice you. I don't feel the moment you just created." And that's when she pulls away. It's not rejection, it's self-protection. Energy doesn't lie. A confident man can say less and still say more. His presence fills the space. His eyes hold hers without flinching. His tone is smooth, not because he's performing, but because he's at ease in who he is. And that ease is everything. It tells her that she doesn't need to overthink, doesn't need to defend, doesn't need to second-guess her own interest. It makes her feel safe to lean in. It makes her want to continue the conversation. That's the quiet power of energy. It bypasses logic and speaks directly to feeling. Most men are too focused on getting the words right. They're trying to avoid mistakes, trying to appear confident, trying to follow a script. But energy isn't scripted, it's sensed. And trying to look confident is the fastest way to look insecure. Real confidence doesn't try. It simply is. The man who understands this stops obsessing over the perfect response. He starts focusing on alignment, being true in tone, posture, intention. He doesn't hide, he doesn't rush, he lets silence breathe when needed. He listens deeply, and when he speaks with presence. Even a simple "I'm not seeing anyone right now" becomes magnetic when it's said with clarity and calm. Because again, it's not about the answer. It's about the energy. And when your energy says, I see you, I feel you, I'm open, the conversation shifts. She leans in, not because you said the right thing, but because you were the right presence. That's what separates noise from signal, surface from depth, interest from attraction, because anyone can say words, but only a few know how to speak without speaking, and that's the language women never forget.